Hello. Today I'm talking to Pawel Brodzinski. We talked about doing all the stuff around building software products and what he finds the most valuable role of these. I'm Ivanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello. With me, I have Pawel Brodzinski. Is that how I should pronounce your name?
Close enough. I will take it. Hello,
Okay.
everyone.
Hello. And one way how I really like to start is to show a little bit on where we are. And I'm in Ghent, in Belgium, and you're in Krakow or in Poland, if I'm correct.
Yes.
And that also means the same time zone, but already a lot of miles, but still the same time zone. And of course, I don't want to show the exact address. We don't want to help stalkers here, uh, but to give a little bit. And Powell, before we jump into the questions, how do you want to introduce yourself? What do you want people to know about you?
I'm Pavel. And if I introduce myself professionally, I lead a company that has no managers whatsoever. Anyone can make any decision. And we are going like that for more than a decade and doing just fine. That typically is enough of a conversation starter. So let's keep it as it is. Lunar Logic, which I lead, is a company that focuses on early stage product development. We work extensively with startups, but also with established companies when they are experimenting with new stuff. So broadly understood, IT.
And that can mean different things. And you already mentioned the company, so let's also show. I think this is the URL, if I'm
Yes,
correct. So
that
if
works.
people really are interested to know more, and I've browsed it today a little bit, and I did remember, but I saw it also still today. There are some partnerships and programs that you have been working on for quite a while with different partnership, with different startups and whatever. So really interesting projects to look there for people who are interested. What are the things that might inspire some of these conversations and some of the things that we're talking about? And I have to say, I really love your backgrounds. Is that also related to people in the team, or is that more personal? The hands that I see in the background.
So this is I'm sitting in our kind of a small meeting room. There's like place for three people, and this wall behind. I'm at the office actually. So this wall at behind my back, it's just a comfy place to sit during video calls, and it was always white boring wall. So during one party, we got this idea that let's just put our hands on it. So this is me. So like everyone who is working with us or has been working with us for since some point has their hands on it with the dates, and there are stories behind each and every of those. And I actually like some of the ones that I like most, or like this one. This had two sets of dates. People
Oh,
were leaving and coming back.
coming back. Oh, it's not the date that they disappeared and then you put an extra date, or
Well,
it's more
well,
the returning date. That's the
actually, there are both sets. So
right.
so it's
It's
like
hard
I
to
was
say.
here, then I wasn't here, then I was here again, then I wasn't here again. But there are some that actually we have at least right now we have at least three people who left, came back, and they are back at least for now for good.
Right. That's also very nice. As sometimes people really have the feeling like, okay, it's time for me to leave, and then they look outside and then they realize after a couple of months or years, like, actually, I liked it very much where I was, and Some people only realize that when they left, and they don't realize it while they're there. So then it's really nice that there is an open environment where people feel free to come back, and yeah, so that's already a nice introduction story, I would say.
And then they bring the experiences they gathered
Yes.
that they couldn't have gathered here, which is kind of win-win, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's sad that they have to leave for that, but at the same time, it's refreshing when they come back and then they can say, actually, I've learned this, and we can, because yeah, indeed, that's very nice, and that brings a lot of there. So yeah, already really interesting stories before we jump into the questions, but let's jump into that very first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
um, I started my career focused on being software developer, which is not very unusual. So
Mm-hmm.
that's not the whole story. But because of where I landed, the first company where I worked, which doesn't exist anymore, I had a chance to go through a set of various roles. I was a tester, I was a developer, I was an architect, software architect. I was a customer specialist, client specialist, like the support, doing the first line of support too. Um, I did project management. I did basically almost all the stuff around building software products. And I think that this is kind of unique in a way that it gives me all those perspectives where I can look from, uh, I can empathize with a person being in another situation, being in another role, and it gives me this flexibility in terms of, like picking up different contexts. And to add a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
a twist to that, if I were to pick one role that was most valuable for me, like throughout this kind of early experiences, it was customer support. And I back then I believed it was kind of potentially a dead end. My then boss was actually hard selling that role to me, and I think it was the most valuable experiences out of them all. Actually, having dealing with actually only the most difficult cases, because like I was back then I was a leader of a team, so the regular cases was handled by the team, and it was like whenever they wouldn't handle the clients, it would fall on my desk, and it changed the perceptions of pretty much everything else that I was doing, like in terms of relationship with clients, in terms of thinking about products, all sorts of small stuff. It really shaped me um, as a professional, I would say.
And when you say it shaped me, it's because you got the hard cases, or because of the interaction. How should I see it?
I think both. So one thing was that I was getting I was receiving like a continuous stream of challenges, but it was also kind of so far from the past roles that I've had, like in testing, in software development, that it was a kind of looking at the same product through very different vantage point, like through the lenses of customers who were frustrated with the obvious stuff, and why wouldn't they know that, and why can they see a bigger picture, and this kind of things. In a way, this was kind of for me, it was an early experience where I was learning all the stuff that I kind of get to relearn later on from lean startup. It's like when you were building, when you were turning your idea into a product, just go there, validate, like release early, validate, learn. This was for me, and was like back then in, I don't know, 2000, 2001, 2002 probably. Back then it was this kind of early experience, and it wasn't like from the book experience. It was the actual, dealing with people who would push down their frustrations through your throat. Even if you don't, if I didn't have capabilities to, to actually go out there and do, I don't know, the user interview, and
Right.
structure it the right way and listen to them, they would just teach me that all that stuff anyway.
Yeah, I remember. Well, I started my career as a software support, so I took the telephone for a small company, and I did that based on a conversation I had with my father just before I started. And to me, it felt really like he said, like, this is a good idea to try look for this kind of jobs because you will learn a lot. Not sure if that's what he meant, but at least that's how I got the message, and that's why I started at that company. And I'm still so grateful. I could only do it 2 years because I really wanted to get into programming, and I looked for all kind of excuses to do some programming and to do other stuff. But indeed, I learned so much, and so much things like, oh, if I actually make like the manual better, I get less calls, so I can focus on the most important calls. And if I have a problem that people tell me, I can say, well, it's a busy day, I think the problem for you is page 15, look there, and if not, call me back. And yeah, that the kind of thing where you learn so much about, okay, what actually uses. And I dare to say that I learned more in the first 2 weeks than I learned in the 3 weeks 3 years before at school. It's not fully true because of course I was able to do these things because I've learned the things at school, but still I learned so much, like you say, about real uses that we at that time sometimes called stupid uses, but now I understand, like, okay, it's the knowledge that they have. We use so much, I don't know, words that they don't understand, and that, yeah, that, and if I now talk to doctors or lawyers, they also use a lot of difficult words that I don't understand, and they understand very easily. And yeah, it's not so much being stupid; it's more like, okay, not being used to certain things, and thinking in their way. Yeah, I think it's really valuable. I think every developer should at least once in their life pick up telephones, help work with real clients. It's really wonderful. I like this. And when you say you picked up, you got the hardest cases. So what did you miss anything because you didn't know the easier cases, or how should I see it?
No, no. So the way the role was sold to me was like, okay, so you will be doing customer support, but you will kind of get a promotion to a leadership position. So this was this kind of, and it came in one box, and I saw myself as a potential leader, but also didn't really want to do customer support. I was like, okay, I will do it. I will do it for some time. So I didn't really miss the simpler cases, and actually I took the opposite path to you. I went there from being a software developer.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
that's even more useful because now you understand better some of these things.
and also it gave me capabilities to answer some of those kind of most challenging problems that a person who wouldn't understand code, who didn't have experience, like actually writing it. I was supporting some of the customers with the issues that I personally coded several months back, which was like super interesting and super like eye opening. And I think that actually just having the hardest cases uh, was a perfect match, like both in terms of what we as a team, as a company could have provided, but also for me personally as the experiences that pushed me further. And I tend to say this one thing about myself, that whenever someone is about to share feedback with me, that I really like praise. But if you want to help me, just skip the praise part altogether. I don't care. Just give me all the critique, because even if it's unpleasant, I don't like to listen to critique. But even if it's unpleasant, this is how I learn. I learn
Right.
on challenges, and I got plenty of those. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Last year, 2 years ago, I don't remember. I read a book about thank you for the feedback, and in it talks about three different types of feedback, like the praise, like you said, the coaching part, or the things that that is more seen as critique, and then the next part is like. What we give a tap on the shoulder, like okay, good, and the scoring part and these things, and what I've learned there is that just like you, the feedback, the positive things is like, okay, it's nice, but I'm like, go, okay, skip it. Give me the good stuff. Give me the things I can learn. And if people tell me like, hey, but it's perfect and I can't give you any feedback, it's like, nah, I kind of annoyed. It doesn't mean that when I get that, that I like it. I mean, a lot of the feedback still is like, damn it, okay, I should have seen it, or why this, and why am I so stupid, or whatever. I still think all these negative things, but I also know I can learn from it. And once I get over the emotions, that's when the real learning starts for me. And yeah, like you say, I recognize a lot of that. And then being in a role where you take support for your own for your own things that you programmed, I can imagine it. Because indeed for me it was more like, okay, my colleagues programmed. I did talk a lot with them. I remember going to their office a lot and disturbing them to understand things much more, which was probably annoying for them as developers. But at the same time, I was able to better understand the problem and maybe help our customers.
I have a question to you, a quick one, because you mentioned that you want stuff when you're listening to feedback, you want stuff that you reflect on and improve. Do you need time for that reflection, or you are capable of doing that like that, just in time? Because I know I can't. I need time.
It depends on a lot of things. If it's something that's already half in my mind, it's easier. If it catches me by surprise, I will probably also be like, no, and whatever, and be. And a lot also depends on, like, for example, if I have slept well or whatever. If I haven't
Oh,
slept well, and before I have a first coffee or whatever, people jump into me. Yeah, that will probably, or if I have, I don't know, if I had an argument with my partner or with my children, and then they jump stuff on me, then I might overreact and things like that. So in general, I would say I need some time to reflect on it. But I also know I'm a rather fast thinker, and so if it's something like, for example, today I've noticed I talked with a colleague, and I was giving something, and I realized just before starting, I was like, oh damn it, this person asked me this 2 weeks ago, and now we're talking for the first time, and I should have just asked much quicker feedback and shouldn't have waited for 2 weeks. So I realized that even going into that, and already felt a little bit nervous. And of course, when I got then some feedback that was really interesting, I felt even more like, yeah, damn it, I should have asked much quicker. So this person didn't even need to tell me. I realized it, but of course, I only realized it going into the meeting, and not a week ago when I should have realized it. And this is, of course, feedback that I definitely give a lot to other people. So I recognize it. But yeah, sometimes too late.
notes taken. Criticize Eve after morning coffee.
Yeah, and well, for example, I'm an evening person, so in the evening things go a lot easier. But again, depending a little bit, of course, the more personal it gets, the harder it is. So feedback from my children, feedback from my partner, that might be harder to swallow than from I don't know, a stranger in the street, for example. Even if it's the exact same feedback, that's also a little bit, because yeah, then there is emotions coming into play, of course, with a lot of these things.
But then, isn't it easier to just dismiss feedback coming from someone with whom you don't have a trust relationship? I know that
Yeah,
you
well,
presented kind of very kind of extreme cases, your
mhm.
loved ones versus a stranger on the street. But as with a stranger on the street, You don't know
Well,
that
I
person,
think
you don't trust that person, and you trust
no,
your
but
loved
yeah,
ones.
I have the tendency to take every feedback seriously, even from people like I know an extreme case of a friend of mine where his boss was shouting to him, very unpleasant situation, but the boss at some point shouted like, ignore my mood, hear my message. And I learned from that, like, even people in very displeased situations, or even people I don't know, that I could learn something from that. So in that sense, I try to take it. But I think the harder part for me is sometimes also when my partner has a critic on me. I might have the tendency to think like, yeah, but after 30 years knowing me, you should know that I'm like this or whatever. And I'm like,
Okay.
then I get annoyed at why do you get annoyed or why do you say this when you already know me?
Okay.
Where and in that sense, I might not be open to listening because I think it's about this and actually something else is. So I'm actually the one, yeah, using the 30 years of knowledge to think something else than the real message is bringing. But both can be equally hard depending indeed on the kind of message.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
that is
But
true.
this is why, personally, for example, I've worked over the number of, so I said 30 years together with my partner, still what I would call happily married, but that doesn't mean that sometimes it's not hard. And we had periods there for us, it was actually good to have a coach or a therapist to help us to get over some difficulties. Well, I wouldn't even call them difficulties, but moments that it was harder to listen to each other and that we looked and like, hey, we don't want to go fall apart, so let's bring someone else in that can make us listen better to each other. And that's of course luckily not the whole 30 years, but from time to time it's really helpful when, yeah, at the moments that is harder, I would say. I don't know if you recognize that, if that's something you need with business partners or with other partners or with other people.
um, so I
Or
have
if
a
you want to
different
share, eh? You
I
don't
have a
have to
different
share.
story from personal life. My marriage didn't survive. Um, with partners, like in professional context, I think what matters to me is this kind of. I think there are two aspects into it. Trust is one, and the second is respect, kind of mutual respect. And once those two are in place, and those are built over the years. I mean, like that. And with some people, it's faster. With some other people, it's not as fast. But these are kind of years. Once that is in place, I can handle a lot. And I think it goes both ways. I tend to think that it goes both ways. Um, and I don't think with those few people who I already have this kind of relationship at Lunar, I don't think we even needed to go for help, for kind of a counselor, third party, however we would frame that role, really. Uh, but similarly to your story, I do remember this kind of, the like difficult moments, and those difficult moments might have been expanded into kind of longer periods. That there was a clash, and then we kind of had to relieve that clash, each one for their own, just to come back, later on, to that professional relationship, with kind of different experiences and different openness to see the other
Yeah,
person.
and I can think in a company like you have, it could be that some people are playing some kind of coach role between two parties to make things happen. Is that happening as well, or did that happen at some point?
Oh, that's an interesting question. My intuition tells me that it definitely had have been happening, must have been happening. But when I try to recall kind of any specific, oh, okay, I can. It's happening. Yes. So like
Well, you don't
that.
have to share if you don't want to,
Yeah.
of course, because you're talking about other people. We don't want to, yeah, go too much into detail, maybe. But yeah, it's.
So it's like people catching you when you are just about to make a misstep in a way, and so someone basically holding your back, but not as in, oh, you're going to fall, so I will hold you, but it's like I'm about to make something stupid and someone noticing it and saying, wait, Pavel, maybe reconsider. It's not like don't do it, it's like maybe
Mhm.
reconsider. But that
Right.
that kind of advice coming from a person who you trust, and who like, who, again, I will come back to respect, who earned enough of your respect, although earning respect is like a poor frame, who you respect enough to basically listen no matter what they say, is typically enough, for you to reconsider, and typically enough to kind of, not fall into that
Mhm.
trap like situation. So yeah, but it would be like super contextual, and I think, like, I can think about situations where I was at the receiving end of this kind of like counseling. So it wouldn't be counseling as in, I don't know, like we have a conflict and we would go for a counselor and we would sit, the three of us, then one party would sit with the counselor, then the other party would sit with the counselor.
Yeah. No.
It would be more like, like a really good friend of yours telling you, you know what, you are complaining about, that clash of yours with someone else, but actually, because I'm close friend to you, I'm telling you, like, it's not their fault, at least not all their fault, it's you. Or what you are telling me about what you are going to do is just plain stupid, so maybe kind of
Mhm.
reconsider it or something. So it's more this kind of thing, but yes, the dynamics is there.
Yeah, I recognize that, and yeah, I've definitely. I'm pretty sure that when I had arguments with my children, that, for example, my wife might say, "Okay, drop it," or yeah, things like that, where yeah, you just know. And at first, it might be, "Oh, why are you picking his or her side?" But actually, in reality, you know that, okay, there is some moment to reflect and to do. I think we all had these kind of things, and indeed, when I talk about the therapist, the cases, the moments that we went was also with both of us going, and then we at some point it's basically us having a conversation, but a third party that we both trust that is there, that might say, wait a minute, because you say this as a reaction to your partner, but I actually heard her say this or that, and maybe that's another way of looking at that, and then feeding back to my partner, what did you mean? And okay, then we're going back. It's basically, for me, a coach or a therapist in that case is a lot of ways of slowing down conversations, making sure we better listen to each other, because sometimes, especially for me, as I'm a fast thinker, I might already think other things that have been said that actually have not been said. So yeah, that's and really wonderful conversations that we were only at the first question and we're already so long. I really, this is why I like so much these kind of conversations, and yeah.
We won't stick to the plan anyway.
Yeah, that's part of the plan, that not sticking to the plan. Let's move to that second question. If you had not been doing what you've been doing now, do you have any idea what could have become of you?
No, no idea. I might have. So at different stages of your life, when you are like, like on kind of a professional curve, if you will, where things are not going the way you envisioned, or things happened to you or the organization that you've been with, and you kind of have to reinvent yourself or consider what you would do. Obviously, I did this kind of thought exercise many times, but honestly, I don't know. I treat the journey, and over the years, my journey, like as compared to many people I know and respect, has been like super super consistent. I actually knew I wanted to do computer science at the university when I was still in a primary school, and
Hmm.
I did it. And then my whole career was basically software development this or software development that. and it was building on top of my past experiences. I never changed my living place. I still live in a city where I was born. So
Oh.
by many accounts, I'm just having a boring career. I mean,
Well,
seriously.
it's one way of looking at it boring, but at the same time, you already had some kind of vision as a young person going later on. Like, okay, I want to go in that direction, and you're still going in that direction, even if plans
Oh
have
no,
changed.
no, no, no!
No.
I mean, like it's been reinvented over and over and over and over and over again, based on the experiences that I've built. So I
Mm.
wouldn't I never at no point I would have envisioned the path actually more than just a couple of years ahead, and how things would be changing. Um, so even if at one point of any given point in time you asked me that question, so what you would be doing
Mm.
if not doing this thing, I might have an answer, but that answer would evolve as well with time. So at one stage I was considering more doing what you are doing, more into kind
Mm.
of mentoring slash coaching stuff. Although I really, really like me being on the practitioner side of things, that when I'm dealing with stuff, like especially when we're talking about organization, like lean, agile, organizational design, this kind of things, I really appreciate the fact that I'm not knee deep, I'm neck deep in stuff. And I'm with the
Mm.
outcomes for good. There's no one to fire me because as a consultant, I'm not delivering results. And oh, by the way, I have another client waiting for me. So I really like that concept. I think I might have been doing something different, but I think it would be somehow related with software, because that's been my path.
Mhm.
And all those experiences, as I mentioned at the very beginning, all those experiences I'm kind of reusing those experiences. I mean, like, I'm not an active developer for almost a quarter of a century. I can still hold myself in a discussion about software architecture.
So, but well, you're when you say not developer, you're talking about code where you're
Yeah,
now developing companies or
yeah,
products or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, like
So it's
software
it's a
developer as in software developer. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I thought that's why I wanted to verify if I understood correctly. Okay, really wonderful. That's it's nice to have from time to time people here who have already such an idea. Like you say, you reinvented yourself a couple of times, but the idea of being in software was already there as a young person. And how did that come into your head? Where did you discover computers and software? Was that did your parents have a computer at home? Did your mother worked in software or something like that? I don't know.
I didn't own a computer. Like, I didn't have a computer at home till high school. So this that might have been, like, some sort of a deficit that I try to compensate for. But
Mhm.
don't ask me about psychology of me being 12-year-old. No idea why.
Mhm. And was the fact and did friends of you have computers?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, like, at the time there was a computer lab available at school. Some friends having computers was like, I kind of had to run an extra mile to use computer, as compared to many of my friends who just had
Mhm.
it at the fingertips. But I don't know. It was more like, like, whatever I was doing around that, it was fun enough to keep doing that, or it was inspiring enough to try something else but around that area. So uh, I guess that this was like, and you could extend that up till today. So whatever I've been doing, I was always finding enough fun in that, even if it wasn't, kind of the very thing that I came for. So for example, I quickly realized I'm not gonna be a rockstar developer, and so I could code my way, well, probably far in those roles, but once I had a chance to step aside from that, but still be around of this idea of like we are creating something for people, we are improving jobs, not necessarily lives of people. We're doing something useful that has value, that actually improves, organizations. I mean, that's rewarding. And then I think that a big epiphany for me was that I found the same things being a leader. So the same things as like, oh, we are helping someone out there with our product. I found similar theme when working with people kind of inside a team, that I'm helping them being better, just uh, doing a better job, building a better product. Sometimes I'm helping them through isolating them from all the crap that's falling from the top.
Right.
And it's not necessarily pleasant role, but if I can isolate them from that, I'm still doing my job very well.
Yeah, and
I
they're
think,
really happy that they don't get the crap if they realize that is part of your job, of course. But yeah, that is that is. I think a lot of developers or a lot of people in any kind of role would be happy to have someone like you around to make sure that there is less crap falling on them. I think yeah. Yeah, it might not be something to put on a business card, but at the same time, maybe it is.
so here's the thing. Lunar Logic is a company without managers. We do have a CEO, and formally, I'm that CEO. And we do have a CEO because this is kind of a legal requirement when you run a company in Poland. I don't know how
Right.
in other countries, but we do need to have one. But this whole setup, or like this is kind of a purely, it's kind of an empty title mostly, makes it hard for me to describe what I'm doing at Lunar. But like having answered that question so many times, I kind of developed a vision of my role. And my role at Lunar is doing everything and anything that no one else wants to do. And it's like everything from managing, like the large scale finances and making sure that we have, like enough cash flow, blah blah blah, on the one hand. On the other, throwing out rotten food from the fridge at the office.
Yeah,
Anything it takes.
that I was yeah. The example I typically give is that in this kind of situations, it's also cleaning the toilet and whatever. But throwing out the trash out of the fridge is so recognizable in every company, even at my own house. At least once every couple of weeks, we have to throw away food, and we always say like, okay, let's look better at whatever, and somehow it doesn't. And of course, if nobody does it, then things starts to rotten and whatever. So it needs to happen. So yeah, I think this is the kind of jobs that are sometimes not recognized or not appreciated, and some people don't want to do it because hiring someone just to throw some food out of the fridge we would not do. But at the same time, it's also not visible at the moments that we might do it, but it's so crucial, because if nobody would do it, yeah, then yeah, then a lot of companies would work a lot less good with some of that kind of work that needs to be done.
and
So
and
that's
and and there is one other thing around that. So frequently people would expect kind of the person who is doing the least prestigious role to be doing that stuff. It's like, oh, it's secretary's job, whatever.
right.
Like uh another thing that I learned in my first company, like in my career, was like how I appreciated work of every single, there were like a few of them, like three of them, every single secretary that we've had throughout the whole company. They were like absolutely fabulously helpful people, and they would run an extra mile or two or 10 for you, as long as you respected them and their role.
Exactly. Yeah,
Because
for
for
me,
some
it's
for so many people, they were like, oh, they are to do my shit, whatever that is, because I'm too important and too prestigious to deal with that. So I'm trying to kind of role model like a very different attitude. It's like, no, if there is a shitty job, like really shitty job, I can do it. There are other people who have more important stuff to do.
yeah. I love how you gently also mentioned the name of secretaries or the role of secretaries and how they are not appreciated enough. Because for me, it's one of the good ways to actually, yeah, to use also in a job interview, seeing how they interact with secretaries or
Oh,
people at the desks and whatever. It's like you get so much information from that. You talk to them and they might say, well, this is a shitty person because this person's like, yeah, for me an unofficial part of a job interview, just casually asking the secretary, how was this candidate, how did he or she treated you. You learn so
absolutely.
much from that. It's
Absolutely. I read that trick some time back. I just forgot it because we don't have like small company. We don't have that role. I mean, like it's one of many for our office manager. But this is such a great hiring tip. Just ask.
Yeah, I also read it somewhere and I forgot us myself from who it is, but it's yeah, and again, indeed, in some companies you don't have that role, and you need to find other ways. But sometimes just going to a restaurant with a person will tell you the same thing because the way they treat the waiter
Yeah.
will give you a lot of information, and yeah, that's and people can have a bad day, and I can understand that sometimes I might also overreact to a waiter or whatever. But if you're in a job interview and you're going for dinner with your possible next boss, yeah, you should be on your toes and be, yeah, at least yeah, normal to everyone, and even extra normal, I would say. Let's again, wonderful side conversations with this question. Let's move to that third one. What is currently your biggest challenge, and why is it a good thing for you? And of course, the biggest challenge that you want to have openly on the internet.
Oh, I'm gonna be like I was boring. I'm gonna be super boring. AI.
Wow.
So actually, it's like unsurprisingly, like the last 2.5 years was a bumpy ride for the whole software industry in general. Like the layoffs in big techs that created kind of ripple effect throughout the whole industry, the inflation, the war. Um,
Right.
so many things that were kind of unexpected, and it came just after like the COVID and lockdowns and by remote/hybrid work that we kind of internalized for those 2 years, and we thought we were good, but we weren't. So many changes, and then enters AI, and you want to learn that software developers won't be needed. There are preachers preaching that. You want to learn that AI is pure hype. You will have people saying that. So it's I tend to consider myself a pragmatist. We use AI like super extensively, especially like early stage products, much less of inherited complexity. Uh, that's kind of a perfect scenario, but I'm really distanced from the hype. Having said that, we don't know what awaits us.
Right.
So it's kind of an environment of constant flux. People, hypers hype, doomers doom. What we definitely can say, this is kind of a situation of like really high uncertainty. So that's kind of a boring answer, really, that question, because it's like, basically the whole software industry, whether they tell it or not, is trying to answer to that question. And I don't think we have one. I don't think we have an answer to that we can kind of figure out if only we think about it long enough.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think this is the first time that this answer comes up here, where I do know a lot, or at least so specifically. And yeah, it's not at the same time not surprising that you bring it up, because I think for a lot of people it's in our heads, like what will happen. And indeed some people choose camps that say, well, it will change everything, won't change anything, whatever. There will be impact, we just don't know yet what. We do know that yes, at this moment it's the code is not good enough, but will it become better? Maybe. Okay, but what will that impact for good developers? Because good developers can use the tools, but okay, who will? Yeah, there is a lot of impact, or there will be. Well, but it's unforeseen what the kind of impact is. I think that's with a lot of new technologies that we have that in many cases.
But I wouldn't just limit that to code. I mean, I think only today I saw kind of Harvard Business Review published kind of and the to kind of self-help like slash psychology seems to be the first usage. We are looking to avoid loneliness by talking to chat gpt, like seriously. And code, while it's fairly significantly represented in those statistics, is is not the first usage. And
Right.
creativity, that was a prominent, I think it was kind of leading use of llms last year, is going down, as if we realized that, oh, the creativity that those tools are providing us is not like really novel. It's it's this kind of an idea you haven't thought about, but if you ask two other people, one of them would. So there's this, but since this is who is agile, let me bring up this thing. I really like Jose Casal, like how Jose Casal responded to the whole agile is that thing that was like definitely on the yeah, social media for like everyone who's involved in agile. He was like, okay, so for years, if there was a CIO and he or she wanted, like this big initiative, it was like agile transformation, hands down. And suddenly it is not anymore. It's AI. It's AI initiative. So those a lot of those kind of agile transformations that were done not because there was a genuine need and a genuine sponsorship for and genuine appetite for a change, but because it was just a safe play for
Right.
someone who's been hired in that big organization. Suddenly they are gone. No wonder that there are like plenty of people who perceive themselves as agile coaches, agile trainers, who suddenly have so much trouble finding just another gig. But at the same time, all those threads, all those companies, all those organizations that genuinely wanted to work in a flexible, responsive way to deliver better value, they're still there. They still have similar needs. And the market is very different. The market for and you could probably say that way better than I can. Uh, the market for coaching, mentoring, but even the number of jobs, the salaried jobs, is very different than what it was like 3 years back. And it's not going back. I don't think it's going back. And I
No.
think and I think it's good.
Well, I think at the same time I also see You see, at some point, we had a lot of people calling themselves agile coaches, and now I see a lot of these people calling them AI coaches. And
Yes.
and I'm like, in just a couple of months, I'm like, you followed three courses or one course, maybe, or you read half a book, or you maybe you just did a prompt on ChatGPT, and you ask them what you need to do to become an AI coach. Yeah, okay.
Totally.
That's a little bit the thing. Yeah, and like you say, it's a hype in one way or another, but at the same time, just like agile was a hype at some point, it did bring value, but it only brings value if you want to invest in it and if you want to learn from it and if you want to spend the time. If you just do it out of the hype because your neighbor is doing it, okay, then it's a waste of money. And the same thing with AI. Just saying, oh, we attach AI to our product doesn't make it AI or doesn't make it any smarter in a way. So yeah, there is and I'm glad that you moved it broader than just writing code, because indeed it will have an impact. Just today in Belgium, they published an article. They did an exam on. So they every year in Belgium they do kind of pre-exam for the people that want to go into medicine or whatever. And today they noticed that this year, where typically the number of students passing is like 17%, this year it was 42%. And they say, okay, it's partially because we changed a little bit our program, but we also suspect a lot of students used AI. And I'm like, okay, how did you not prevent this? Whatever. There's a big discussion going on in Belgium around that. And yeah, so it has impact on these kind of things. And yeah, so it will have impact, and yeah, it's kind of dangerous. Just like people before were googling what are the symptoms, now they're going to ask ChatGPT, and they might. I heard, what was it, a couple of weeks ago? I heard about people who were afraid of salt, and so they didn't want use salt anymore in their food, and they used something else that was to replace it, and it was based on ChatGPT, but that was something to do that could work for not for eating, but actually for cleaning stuff. But the kind of thing you replaced it with is highly toxic, and so
Yeah.
then people get all kind of crazy stuff. And that's, yeah, but ChatGPT told us that this is the replacement. Yeah, without the context, it is a replacement, but not for the way you want to use it. And it's like, yeah, rather dangerous kind of ways.
and
So
and like, consider ethical and moral consequences of that. Who, like, eventually someone's gonna die. I mean, like,
oh, and
it's
probably already happened, and we might,
certainty.
yeah. And
And
that's,
eventually, given, like, how the whole legal stuff works in the US, someone is going to sue someone else.
oh yeah.
Now, it's gonna be super interesting to watch how those cases develop, and like, how the general ruling kind of converges or stabilizes in a way, because we don't know. For now, we don't even know what is fair use of the training data, because they
Right.
obviously use the whole internet to train the models. But we have the like, the whole tension, like, from creators, whether it's fair use or not, and there are the first rulings are going both directions. We don't know how the ruling would convert. There are so many unknowns. So yeah, if you're asking about the challenges, I mean, probably the biggest unknown in my professional life, here it goes.
Yeah, I can agree. Like, yeah, just the talk about the medical things. If you don't want, in a way, you don't, the companies owning the medical information, they don't want ChatGPT or whatever other LLMs to use it, because it's their
Yeah.
proprietary thing. But if they don't use it, they will invent it something that is even more dangerous. So which choice do you want us to make? Well, probably not use the LLM for these kind of things. But yeah, so already now, some of these things are better at predicting cancer and whatever,
Yes.
based on seeing things earlier. So it is good in that sense. But again, in the correct context with the correct thing and who gets paid, and that yeah, that's a whole different thing. Really wonderful conversation, and I agree. It's in that sense it's very strange that it didn't pop up at that kind of level as a biggest challenge. We did talk sideways a little bit about AI, but never at this course. So really wonderful conversation. I want to move to that next question, and with especially with you, because we know each other for quite a while. I feel, and this conversation is also very passionate, very driven. Do you know what drives you? Do you know where that passion is coming from? I had the feeling when you talked about earlier thinking about wanting to go into computers or something with IT, that there was already some kind of drive. Was that like this, or is am I now inventing stuff?
Oh, so definitely what drove me when I was like 20 or something like that is very different than what drives me now.
Mm-hmm.
I um, I don't have a simple answer to this one, but it would be anything around people. So so if I try to kind of reverse engineer my answer to that question, it would be mostly about like the moments where I feel like, again, let's limit that to professional context, where I feel like I'm living to the fullest. It would be all around situations where we we did something and I contributed to that, that makes the other person, I don't know, fulfilled, happy, accomplished. And not only in those kind of situations where there's kind of single point in time which you could point like, we have delivered that project and it was a huge
Mm-hmm.
success and everyone celebrate, but also in ways such as, like us on this wall, people just calling me and telling me, Pavel, I want to get back to lunar. How can
Mm-hmm.
we make that happen? I mean, that again, that's a point in time conversation, but that realization, that situation was a process. Also, I could probably share like dozens upon dozens of stories. People not leaving the company despite getting like ridiculously, uh, outrageously high salary proposals from other companies,
Mm-hmm.
or people basically taking unpaid time off when the company needed that badly to survive. Like all sorts of difficult decisions that people show not through what they say but through how they act,
Mm-hmm.
that show that whatever we are doing here, like together, uh, these are going to be big words, so sorry for that. That Lunar is more than a company. That it's and I don't think it is a fair comparison to compare the company to a family. This gives me rush. It's
Mm-hmm.
rubs
I
me
remember
the wrong
discussion, I
way.
think, with you around that topic. But indeed, how do you deal then with the fact that for you the company feels more than just the company? So
So I
do
will
you
give
have
you.
another word for that?
No, because that more may be different for different people, and that's fine.
Mm,
So
right.
so so the metaphor I may bring. I don't know if you're a football fan. Since
Mm-hmm.
we are Europeans, we might be. Barcelona,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they kind of market themselves as more than a club, and there are more football clubs like that. I think that Borussia Dortmund, from German clubs, would be similar. Would have similar vibe. So there are those organizations where, like, there would be more than just this kind of default frame.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for us there is something in that. And again, if I were to explain, what would you see if you were here as a fly in the wall? What kind of signals, behaviors, everyday acts would you see? you would see different people taking over kind of the leadership in different situations. One thing that is going on for like 2.5 weeks, someone wrote, we have a blackboard in the kitchen. Someone wrote on it, "What are you grateful for today?"
Mm-hmm.
A question mark. And people started basically answering that question on the blackboard. And then after the first week, there is a summary coming on Slack channel. This is what we've been grateful for last week. And then that thing happens again. And then that thing is gonna happen again. And this is someone basically taking initiative, taking 10 minutes of their ingenuity, 10 minutes of their
Yeah.
time, and basically giving everyone who contributed and those who didn't as well a signal of connection, which translates to the sense of belonging, which builds which is one of the critical aspects of organizational culture. And that's not me saying that. I'm not that smart. This is Culture Code, the book Culture Code from Daniel Coyle. Uh, you are going to find it.
Yeah,
Appreciate
it's
that.
somewhere there, but of course, the moment that I'm looking for, I don't find it. But I had it in my hands like yesterday or 2 days ago.
These are
So
my hands. That are your books.
yeah, something similar. But yeah, I recognize what you say that yeah, the leadership. It's for me, leadership is not a role or not a position at least, and it's different people taking ownership at different moments, and then just asking simple questions. It might be someone else who came up with the crazy idea about, oh, this is an empty wall, let's do something, and then somebody else building on it, oh, let's add hands, and then someone, oh, but then I want to add the dates when people start, and I don't know how it got there, but I can just see these kind of things happening. And I have the same averse like you have for companies calling themselves a family, because then, especially when they want to advertise it, then I think it's just wrong. But at the same time, I've seen companies like yours. I've never been yet to Luna, but I've seen a couple of other companies where I do have that feeling, and it's like, okay, how do you then call it? And it's indeed, it's good to just say, indeed, like you say, okay, we're more than a company, and we're okay, and maybe it doesn't have to have a specific name, but it's like you say, it's in the culture. People feel it when they're there, and that for me, that's more the culture than the posters that are on the wall telling what's the culture, because that's yeah, for me, one of the things I regularly say is that when people select the kind of slogan of, okay, this is part of our culture, basically it's typically means this is the thing that we care about, but we are not yet there, so we want to get there, because that's why we put it on the wall, because it's, well, okay, and that might be okay. We might not be yet, I don't know, whatever thing we say, but we want to get there, and that's why we make some publicity internally for being whatever that we want to be more. But the real culture is that is already there, that we don't have to put names on there, like you say. So that's and that's, yeah, that's a drive, and that's a passion in its own, I would say. So that explains a lot of, yeah, for me, it's a really great answer to that question.
So one more, which is a simple thing, which and this is kind of extension of that, which is, I would like Lunar to be the place that sustains those kind of, several families through people who are working here, like not only us. And I know, and I don't expect, like all the family members to love Lunar for whatever we are doing, but it's just to provide this kind of sense of, I don't know, safety, sustainability, that you can count on that part. Like when everything else is falling apart, you can count on this part of your life to be stable. And it's like you can never deliver on that. Like this would be a north star. You can never deliver 100% on that, because stuff happens. Crisis, AI reinventing our industry, all those things. But let's just like whatever we're doing, let's just work toward building that option. Because if you don't want to use that option, that's fair. You want to move on, you want to work for a bigger company, whatever, it's fair. It's not of your life to do something. It's just an option, and if that option is good enough for you or for anyone else, I believe that they would be using that option, and through that we would have a really stable team.
Right. I really like that. And it's like you say, it's an option and people can use it if they want. And hopefully a lot will use it or will stay for a long time. Really wonderful addition to that answer. Let's move to that next question. What do you consider your biggest achievement, or at least the biggest achievement so far?
I've seen those questions before,
Mm-hmm.
so treat that silence as the level of challenge. How hard it is to answer this one. So I will start with a non-answer. I was raised in a way where I don't boast.
Mm-hmm.
It was not seen in my family home, was not seen as a good thing. So I have this program, and I am aware of this programming.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what I'm proud of. I don't know, something that someone else would say that I should be, or something that will happen in the future. Um, but I think I would say like the first thing that comes to my mind is something around lunar, and if that there is something around lunar that happened throughout my 13 years here already, it would be the journey.
Mm-hmm.
There is no single accomplishment. Even if I could bring some kind of milestones that are in my head, which we achieved together, I think that if there is one thing, it's the whole journey. But if the answer is the journey, I don't, and I start with today and go back in time. I don't go back in time only for 13 years. I go back further and further, because lunar, the way it is, wouldn't have happened if not the earlier experiences. So think I think it would be that how this whole story unfolds and keeps unfolding, and it's not kind of a copycatting past experiences, and like taking old recipes and applying that in new contexts, but this kind of continuous evolution, continuous reinventing things around whatever we are doing here. And at some point it might have been focused on software engineering. At another point it might have been focused on agile and lean. At another time it might have been focused on collective intelligence and the role of empathy in professional context. On another time it might have been responding to kind of unpredictable challenges that the world serves us. So if you looked at whatever topics I was active around throughout the years,
Mm-hmm.
I was different. I was different, but it was always connected to what I thought were needed in a way. So yeah, the journey, and I hope it continues. And whatever we would be talking about if we were talking 2 years from now would be different than what we are talking about today.
Yeah, I recognize it well, and thank you for also bringing up indeed the hard part to this, to brag and to be really proud. It's sometimes a question I ask before the question, because I've noticed that a lot of us are grown up in that kind of way to yeah, basically be humble or not to be too much proud, and so a lot of us have that same thing. And at the same time sometimes it's sad that we don't dare to be proud of things. And just like you say, the whole journey where you are with your company, the whole that is something to be proud of, because it's building. And like you said earlier on, the fact that there's people that are leaving and coming back is something to be, yeah, that says something. Not many people want to do that with other companies that they worked with, but the whole journey, a company you have to reinvent every time. We talked earlier about AI. That will be definitely a challenge, and reinventing companies and ways of dealing with that. So that's yeah, every company that exists more than 1 or 2 years is something to be proud of, because it typically means people have already reinvented ways on yeah on working, and making sure that we make our customers happy and our employees happy, and probably in the opposite order. It's a really wonderful answer. Let's move to a personal agility tip. Do you have a personal agility tip to share?
Personal agility. I will generalize it a bit. I will take the liberty of generalizing, and it's as much personal agility as agility in general. And a theme that keeps popping up in whenever I'm sharing lots of stuff around agile and lean, but also in all the other areas of interest like organizational design, product development. It boils down to the same pattern. Try things, stick with the ones that work, drop the ones that don't. And for years, maybe even decades, I thought it was obvious to everyone. I was like, that's what a sensible person would do, right? And then I got involved in some discussions, and someone referred to a prominent figure in agile community that will remain nameless for the sake of this conversation. That this person is like a magpie. They would pick all the shiny stuff and bring it all together and pretend it's kind of a whole. But for whatever reasons, that magpie stuff sells. And the other person, who will also remain nameless, seemingly had a grudge with that. And I was like, in that conversation, I was like, but hey, this is precisely what I'm doing. And you don't say, you don't label me a magpie. Why? And the person, like the complainer, was because, well, A, you don't say it's a recipe to all the pains in the agile world, and B, when something doesn't work, you reflect and drop that thing. And this was, I think this was the first time when I reflected, I had this auto reflection that, oh, so isn't it obvious that if something doesn't work, you basically drop it and look for other inspiration. And I kind of started building upon that, and kind of looking at what I've been doing. So lots and lots of times I would basically pick an inspiration from not necessarily most obvious source. I was like, oh, so this worked in that context, so let's try how would it look like in our context. So this is the try things, not necessarily try things in agile context that are labeled agile. One of absolutely pivotal moments for me as a leader was reading the research on collective intelligence from Anita Woolley. I don't think there is a book. If there was, I would definitely recommend it, which basically says that there is such a thing as collective intelligence. So teams have an equivalent of IQ, like a group aspect of teams, and it's not connected in any way to individual intelligence. So the most collectively intelligent teams are not those that are built of smartest people. And I brought that research, and we could probably spend an hour talking about which teams are most collectively intelligent. And I mentioned before empathy. Empathy is an oversimplification, but teams built of people who are socially perceptive, who look like at the reactions of everyone else, and teams that have equal fairly equal conversation level. So everyone contributes in conversations. Interestingly enough, it correlates heavily with how many women are on the team. Most collectively intelligent teams are those dominated by women, not purely female, but dominated by women. Anyway, this is something coming from psychological research, not agile at all. This is what inspired me to kind of reinvent how we were hiring and how we are what kind of things we take into consideration when building teams. And so learn about stuff, broad stuff, try things, and then stick with what works, because like whether this approach would work or not, the jury did not decide up front. We had to like apply that in some context and then see what kind of outcomes it brings us. And interestingly enough, this is kind of an interesting example. Interestingly enough, at some stages, because like we've been taking empathy or like social perceptiveness into consideration for way more than a decade, and at different stages at Lunar, we were having explicit discussions that the balance between those kind of non-technical so-called soft skills versus technical skills is wrong. We should focus more on one or more on the other. So it was kind of a continuous adjustment mechanism. So in reality, looking at dozen years back, starting like from the point where we are right now, like with the benefit of hindsight, there was never the right balance. It was always like compensating for whatever skills we've already had on board and whatever skills we've been missing. It was more just like kind of look at another dimension. And then I could also probably share like lots and lots and lots of stories about things that we tried, and they didn't work in the long time, so we dropped them. And one neat trick around that is whenever you're designing an experiment, design it in a way that unless there is an active person, active behavior that would sustain that experiment, it will die. This is a good design of an experiment. So think of, I don't know, like one experiment that I ran like years ago, dropped it after some time. Happiness board. Whenever you enter the office, you basically mark whether you're happy, so or unhappy. The whole thing was not software where everyone was expected to fill it in, but it was a whiteboard. So after a few weeks, the whiteboard was full. So there had to be someone who would wipe the whiteboard so we can still keep doing that thing. An active act of renewing an experiment. At some point, no one renewed it, and thus experiment officially was dead.
I like that indeed, and I think by accident I've already used that sometimes as a coach. Like you start something, and indeed in the beginning I put a lot of energy, and then at some point like okay, I do a little less because I want to see if other people are taking over, and sometimes people are taking over, and then it actually flies off because then it's without me. And then you see much more people, and then but other things are just dropping dead. And in the beginning it was like, oh, this was, everybody said it was a good idea, but if I don't do anything, nobody does. Okay, then this is the right thing to drop and not have anything with that. I really like that, and I love the fact that you talk about dropping things that don't work. It's insane how many practices are there in companies and rules and bureaucracy that nobody wants, and that whatever there once was a context wherein it worked and it did solve an actual problem 100 years ago or whatever, and somehow we keep having these kind of things.
Absolutely, and this is basically a story of agile methods.
Right.
Because they're like, take any agile method. I don't want to bash any single one of them. Take any method. There is like set of recommendations, practices, this kind of things, and it was a set designed by someone for some sort of a team, and then we kind of treated it as a general, universally useful advice. But no one questions, like I will consciously use a bad example. No one questions whether we should sync up every single day for a short term. This as a part of Scrum, we are doing dailies. Actually, this is one of the practices that I personally find like super useful. And when someone says like, oh well, let's not do stand-ups, let's solely do them, not not in a format that is widely considered as Scrum format, and not without a reason, because it used to be Scrum format. Uh, but still, that daily sync up is valuable. But the question always should be why we are doing that, what value we are getting out of it. And if you answer that question, we will. I guarantee you, we will stop answering the questions what I've done yesterday and what I'm gonna work on today, because it doesn't contribute to that valuable part.
Yeah, I've seen so many times when people are complaining about dailies, and then they also complain about other things they're missing. It's like, okay, but that's actually why we should have a daily sync, whatever you call it. And
Yeah.
I don't care. You call it party, you call it huppel the pup. I don't care. But there is a reason why you want to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, I talked earlier about having a coach and having a person that helped out. That was one of the tips I once got for with my partner. Like, oh, maybe you should have on a daily find a moment to talk about your stuff or your day, and practical about. So we try to have a conversation every time after dinner, like, okay, what's your day tomorrow, how is my day, where, and it's incredibly simple, and it's hard in our personal environment to do it. And at the same time, like, why didn't I invent this? Because this is what I'm doing with my teams. But yeah, it's so useful, and every time we don't do it, I feel it like the next day immediately, and I know that, yeah, this is helping me, and I see the same thing with teams. Really
That's
wonderful tip, and like you said, if things are not working, drop it. That, and if yeah, if I've because I've had other things that were given for teams, for partnership, whatever, that, yeah, some things don't work anymore. They might have worked, drop it. That's yeah, such a wonderful thing. I want to
you.
move to the next question already, because we're
Yep.
running a little bit out of time, so I want to make sure that we still have time for another thing. Remote work. We talked already a little bit about COVID, and then we all had to work remotely. How long did you work remotely? Is that something that is very regular in your company? How does it work for Luna?
So right now we have one office day. So we are hiring. We are only hiring people who are willing to work from the office. If someone wants to work fully remotely, it's a no-go. It's a conscious decision. I could refer back to the culture code and the signals of belonging that are happening. Like when you are in a shared space, those signals of belonging are happening for free. If you're working remotely, you have to design for them, and it, like, both parties need to be kind of ready, one to send that signal, the other to receive that signal. It's freaking hard, and I think very few organizations learned how to do it well. So we tend to look for people who are willing to work from the office, and who are willing to work from the office as much as possible. Having said that, though, we have very loose norms when it comes to remote work. So work from the office is encouraged, but if you, for whatever reasons, if you choose to work from home extensively, it's possible, which is kind of a weird attitude, because most of the time when companies want to have people at the office, they would basically force them to be at the office, and they get it in a way, because these are the rules. We avoid the rules because everyone has autonomy. Anyone can make any decision, including a decision that I am working remotely from that point on. So it's more like creating norms and showing the gains that we have. So I would say that we easily have at the presence at the office easily above 50%, definitely below 75. I don't measure that precisely. So it's kind of as much accuracy as you're going to get from me. But
But like you say, the fact that you don't have any rules actually makes people more willing to come to the office. Except the only rule is that you have to be able, when you're hired, you have to come to the office from time to time. So full remote is that's the only rule I'm hearing, or the
yeah,
major rule.
we expect you will be at the office on Mondays. And not necessarily the full day. So there are, like, people develop their own rhythm. Some would basically start working from home, then come to the office, because like what we, the reason why we're doing that, because like again, it's like coming to the office for the sake of coming to the office. And why would you do that? So there should always be why behind that. And the reason why we're doing that is basically building that sense of togetherness, that sense of belonging, that we bump into each other, we do random stuff together because we, I don't know, met in the kitchen, and I am cooking and you are cooking, and right now we have 15 minutes basically to be human beings and get to know each other better. And actually the reason why it's so important to me personally is that we learned the hard way what happens when we lack that sense of belonging. So after the lockdown started, when COVID hit us, like before that, we were working from the office, like pretty loose working from home policies, but it meant that anyone would be at the office like at least, say for some exceptions, at least four times a week. And then suddenly we all are working 100% from home for a year and a half. So what was happening before, like we had like a really diverse group of people, but we didn't fare that well when it comes to inclusion. So not everyone felt welcome. But before the pandemic, there was all those situations where you, even when we had a beef because, I don't know, something I said, and that thing offended you, I wasn't aware, I don't know, something I wrote on Slack or whatever. So we would bump into each other, like when fetching ourselves coffee, and we would have this kind of normal conversation, like, what was your weekend? And what are you reading? Or what's the last thing that you watched on Netflix or whatever? And suddenly it's like impossible for me not to see a decent human being in you, because you are a decent human being, and vice versa. So we reset our beef to a neutral level.
And we notice that we have similar hobbies, or our children have similar hobbies, and you're a real person again.
Yeah, but then we remove those accidental connections between people, and what we are left with is communication, remote communication, asynchronous communication, written communication, because unless we sync up for a video call, it would be written. Also, communication in a language that is for neither of us native language. We're not that competent in English as you are in, I don't know, like what's your primary language? Because in
Dutch,
Belgium, Dutch.
It's Dutch indeed.
Okay.
Yeah, that you're completely correct. Written, it's written. It's different language, because indeed, typically on Slack or Teams or whatever tool we're using, we're all jump to English much more, because there might be others, and indeed, the people I run into in the office, I might just talk Dutch to them, or French, depending on which language they talk. And I really like that as examples, that it's when you talk remote, I want to stress that it's a multitude of different things that make it harder. It's not just.
And then it's so easy to respond through your biases, through your prejudice. And then if I respond through my biases to whatever you wrote to me, I would just one up. I would just do one up, and then
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's so much harder for you not to react through your lenses, and we just and it just
Yeah, I
spirals
don't
out. And we,
recognize
we
it.
actually we actually had kind of serious like conflict, kind of almost, actually not almost, tribal conflict raging during the remote times. And I was like, not again. I mean, like, we learned
Mm,
the lesson the hard way,
mm.
but this is why it is important for me, to have that connection, those like human to human connection.
Yeah, I recognize this. This is also for me one of the reasons why I like to take the time for this conversation, because yeah, I don't want it to be rushed, and I don't want it, and that's the other thing. Remote, we hardly take time to have a long conversation. When people are in a remote meeting, everybody's still reading their email or their Slack or whatever. They're still
Yes.
typing, and the meeting only starts when everybody's there. Where physically, if I'm physically in a meeting, and if I'm with you in the same room, I will ask, "How was your weekend?" And okay, and what's the exam of your children or whatever that I still remember from you, and I will have a person to person conversation, and we will do it if we're with the meeting room. I will have a conversation with you, and the other two will have a conversation remotely. That we can have a more private conversation, or no, or more not work related conversation, but we can't have it with two by two, because we're already four in the meeting and we're waiting on the fifth person. So it's really is a harder thing to yeah, make sure it works.
But
That's
do you,
that's
do, do you see people bringing the same habits to physical spaces? Because I do. And I see that even in me, and I hate that observation. Try to kind of consciously, remind myself, if I'm in the same room with you and you are talking to me and I'm talking to you, I just try to close my
Mhm.
laptop, because otherwise it's just so tempting to just finish that one sentence that I was in the middle of, or something like
Yeah,
that.
well, it's what I'm noticing these days is I'm in quite some meetings where we take global notes. So we open a Google document or something similar, and we all take notes together, which I like, because then the notes are much better. But once you do that, it's very tempting to have a ping from whatever thing, and then go into that conversation and be distracted. I'm trying to, so for example, on my phone, all notifications are turned off, with a few exceptions of like my
Yep.
partner and my children, a couple of things like that. But a lot of chat things are on off. Mail won't tell me. There is no Slack on my phone or whatever. But yeah, if you're on a laptop, there might be still things pinging, and I consciously turn off the apps for some of these things to not get distracted. But yeah, it's like you say, you go into the meeting room. I'm in many cases I'm the first arriving, because I try to be on time, even before the time, and then I might still be in Slack, and then somebody's joining, and indeed, like you say, let's first finish, instead of, hey, how are you doing? That's so recognizable. It's yeah, it's yeah, it's something that it's we need to get into new habits and to have better habits. Like already, like I said, I turn off notifications. That's something I've learned because I got bothered
Yep.
all the time, and other kind of things. And we need new rules for older tools that are taking over, because I want to be in control of my life and not let my phone or my computer be in control of my life. And but it's hard, and I need to keep adjusting and asking people, well, like, yeah, having, yeah, like I try and I don't want to have a phone when I'm eating, and of course my children will do that, and of course they will tell me that you're doing it as well, and of course, like I said earlier on, it annoys me, but they're right. I'm like, okay, and I will try to take it away, and once every whatever, it will still happen. And yeah, it's the same thing in meetings. So really wonderful ideas on how we remote working moved into a lot of these things, and we need to claim back that physical time and make that work. So really wonderful. I want to move to that next question, and I know you have a couple of answers. So, what's a book that you have read? And we already talked a bit about one of the books. What the to speed up time a little bit, what I will do is I will show the list of the books that you gave, and you just tell me a little bit about the book. I think
Can I
that's
start with one which I
yeah,
probably didn't share, and I just like,
right.
I was like, when I saw this question, it's like, oh, there are definitely going to be books that would just cross my mind in that
Mm-hmm.
conversation. Uh, Chris Matz and Olaf Masson's Commitment, which is about all about real options. Go read that. It's a comic book, sorry, visual novel. It's a comic book really, which is absolutely quick read, and I keep recommending it. I keep recommending rereading this book every now and then. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
couple of hours of your time. Absolutely fabulous read.
I love that you bring it up, and this is the funny thing is. So we're recording this on Tuesday. On Friday, there is a conversation going live where the person talked about the exact same book, and we recorded that in the week that the conversation with Chris Matz was going live. So it was really serendipity in all kind of ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, and now I'm again. Yeah, I moved the book because yeah, it's literally where am I there is the book the commitment book. Yeah, I love that book. It's indeed really wonderful book, and it's just wonderful, both the content, the way it's written, also the way it was created, because it was first created or Chris and Olaf already had the idea, but they, because creating the drawings was rather expensive, so they did what, how do we call it anymore? They asked basically for money, and people like yeah, a lot of people in the community talked about or gave some money and to make sure that that book was possible to create. So at multiple levels, really wonderful book. So thank you for bringing that one up. So let's move to that next one. Which why did you want to talk about this book, the introduction?
Oh, well, this is because this is an unusual recommendation. Stephen
Mm-hmm.
Bungay's basically blew my mind more than a single time. This is one of those stories where someone draws inspiration from a very different place. Stephen Bungay's thing is history,
Mm-hmm.
actually military history, and he has a second or cross career in as a leadership consultant, and he basically brings both worlds together. And that book is a masterpiece where he basically shows how many of the stuff that we keep inventing in the management and leadership in 21st century is actually stuff that we reinvent from the 19th century
Wow.
military. And actually, I was like, the first time I saw Stephen Bungay, like he basically made like delivered this speech where it's like, oh, this is leadership stuff that seems so progressive, and oh wait, Prussian army in 19th century was already doing all that stuff. And he finished with one slide. And oh, by the way, uh, Roman legions 2000 years ago were doing lots of this stuff too. In your face, dear management theory. So I bring that up because it's so non-obvious
Mm-hmm.
and so inspirational, even if that's not the easiest read. But anyone who like has any knack for history would appreciate that book a lot.
I love that you, yeah, that story about how many things are have been invented before, or yeah, that we've forgotten. I think already in the just 20 years of history of agile, I see the same thing happen. I do remember Kent Beck talking at some point. I think I saw it live, but I'm not sure. I saw a talk from Kent where he talked about, and he said, well. I knew that when I wrote the extreme programming book, that there was a couple of things that I borrowed, stole, whatever word he's using, from other people, except this one thing that I knew that it was mine. And then he said, and then later I discovered that also that I learned that at school, but I had completely forgotten about that. And so
Yeah.
it took him, he discovered like 10 years after that also some, and I think it was TDD or unit, I don't remember anymore, but there was something in there that he also had learned in school. Okay, it was called different, it was a little bit different, but it was enough similar to for him to say like, actually I should say I didn't invent that either, it was already there, and it was in a very similar kind of thing. And yeah, that's just wonderful that somehow we learn things. I remember in 2004 I brought my father with me to agile conferences because I wanted to do something, a kind of training or workshop that I wanted to do with him. We failed to get into the agile conference, but I thought, okay, let's bring you with me, we'll learn together, and then we'll discuss and maybe have a better workshop next year. um, and he gave the exact same thing. They're making all the same mistakes that we did in the 70s or in the 80s. It's like they're remaking, and there's like it's like really wonderful conversation for me to hear. Like, oh, a lot of these things, yes, he said it's really wonderful, but we already tried some of that, and they're kind of making similar mistakes as what we were making. And these are books that are really interesting to read because this is what we learned basically from that period. And
And
very simple.
one additional flavor of this is that we tend to think about military as this kind of very rigid hierarchical
Right.
structure. And an average Western European army at the end of the 19th century was more progressive in terms of leadership than average corporation at the beginning of the 21st century. This is what absolutely blows my mind.
Yeah, and in that sense, and turn the order of the books a little bit. This is a book that goes into that direction because he talks about, David Marquette talks about, okay, an army that, or no, I will put it differently. He was seeing himself much more as much more the typical kind of army, and then learned that, hey, if he behaved in a different way with a different leadership style, he actually achieved much more. That's at least one interpretation of looking at the book. When you propose this book, why do you think people should read this one?
Because if Stephen Bungay is boring because he focuses too much on theory and on the stories that happened 200 years ago or 150 years ago, this story is fresh, relevant. David Marquette is absolutely fabulous storyteller, so it's an easy read. And again, it's because of the contrast, like the nuclear submarine. How about giving those people more autonomy? How would that work? The answer to long didn't read fabulously well. And if you want to know, if you want to know why, just read the
Read the book.
book. It's an easy read.
It's true, but it's really wonderful. Well, it's easy to read, but the lessons, to learn the lessons, you might want to read it twice or three times because it's
Yeah.
sometimes it's easy, and then you try it out yourself and like, wait a minute, that's not that easy. So then I needed to read the book back again. But still, it stays indeed an easy one. Let's bring in the next book. Why would you advise this to people?
Gary Hamel, the radical management theorist, the radical management theorist that's out there. I really like Humanocracy because at some point, late 2010s, Teal organizations was making the waves. It's like, let's become a Teal organization. Um, and I often recommend Frederic Laloux, Reinventing Organizations, always with one disclaimer, which is the stories of progressive organizations in that book are pure gold. The theory that he builds on those stories, not that useful. So Gary Hamel's Humanocracy, for contrast, takes almost as many stories, except that he doesn't aspire to build some sort of a theoretical model. He basically provides us with some advice that he keeps repeating for years, like how organizations should introduce more autonomy, more transparency, how we should build companies to give more power to the people doing the work, more decision making power to where the work actually happens. It's just it's just more concise, makes more sense, and as good as a of a read as Lalo. So just an obvious
Mhm.
recommendation. What kind of organizations we should design in 21st century? Kara, how about humanocracy?
And then I want to show this last book. Why do you want people to read this one?
Oh, this is an oddball. I didn't know how our conversations would develop. Obviously,
Hmm.
so again, as a contrast to Harari's *Sapiens*.
Hmm.
Again, a book that was like highly popular, and what I found in Harari's *Sapiens* was like he's making stuff up. Just like with the benefit of hindsight, he basically connects the dots so that it fits
The
whatever he
story.
was thinking. And actually, he admitted that later on. I heard an interview with him. Like he admitted that he was doing something like that. What Greber and Wengrow do with the dawn of everything, they do proper research before they formulate their
Theory.
hypothesis, like the theory. And basically, the theory is that the society, the way we have it right now, that is in many ways highly hierarchical, highly patriarchal, was not the only way that was the only possible outcome, and that throughout the ages many societies were inventing and reinventing themselves. Many societies or tribes living as close as on separate sides of the same river had like vastly different cultures, and how many of those societies that were based on very different principles that than average nation state in the 20th century were active, and still to a degree are active, and how we can design systems that thousands or tens of thousands people are self-organizing without direct
Mm.
authority. I mean, there's lots and lots and lots of interesting stuff in there, but even from but only from professional perspectives, this is super interesting and super inspiring. How we are, in a way, wired to design very different organizations that a typical organization in 21st century.
Thank you, because indeed that's somehow, yeah, we some people have the idea, yeah, but that's the best way or whatever. No, that's for whatever reason that a lot of us adapted that, but that doesn't mean it's the best, and certainly doesn't mean it's the only way.
Yeah.
Lots of, well, actually, as a consultant, I go in so many different companies. They all work different. They think they were similar in some kind of things, but they all work different. They have similarities and sometimes not in the way they think, but yeah, a lot of things are different. I want to move to already that for me one of the most interesting questions. Like, what question do you think I should also ask you, and what's the answer?
I'm not prepared for that question officially. I might have thought about something. I don't know. I mean, like honestly, this
Hmm.
conversation is for me. The thing that we create here is this kind of environment where the conversation just flows,
Hmm. That's
and
the idea a little bit, but yes, thank you.
and
Um,
it meanders here and there, and I don't. There's
Well,
literally.
let's rephrase that question. Is there things that you talked in what direction that you thought before in what direction this conversation could go that we didn't go yet? Is there anything that you thought before, like, hey, I'll probably talk about this, or we talk about that?
I don't know. If the first thing that comes to my mind is another aspect that we didn't touch, which is product development. Like
Mm-hmm.
basically, we scratched it at the very beginning. Here I'm making stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
How AI would affect product development, and would it be better or worse? And I'm like, and the short answer to that question is like, I would genuinely hope that people who have all sorts of opinions about how AI will allow us to generate products would go back 12 years back and reread or read for the first time a lean startup of Eric Ries, just to to connect to book recommendations, because it so much feels like whatever is pushed down our throat in terms of how product development would look like, it's like as if that blue book never happened.
Right.
And it's and again, like, there may be some complaints about, like, some statements of that Eric Ries put in that book, and some I would consider even valid. But what happened under the whole lean startup umbrella, not only Eric Ries' book, but everything else that happened through the next decade or so, how we basically structured, also in a big way, reinvented the stuff that kind of our parents knew about building products, but how we structured our thinking about product development, it seems like it went all down the drain. And suddenly it's all AI, anything, generate stuff, go fast, build, and all the lessons about learning, validating, building with the customer in mind, but not the customer as in I will tell you what I will be using, but the customer as in observing my behaviors of what I'm actually doing, because we know that what people say they would do is different than what they do.
Oh yeah. Exactly.
So
Yeah, that's
so
really
yeah.
important.
So if there was a
Um,
context that we didn't touch, here is one another
mhm.
facet of our broadly understood jobs in the context of IT.
Thank you for bringing that up, because it's indeed, well, in a way you brought up another book, but that is
Here we go.
it's a concept that indeed is important. And I think, actually, I've heard people also saying with AI we can move back again to some of the basics things of the lean startup book of Eric Ries, because we can, one of his ideas is we want to validate very quickly. Well, with AI you can generate your program very quickly. It will be dirty, it won't be good at whatever, but you can validate at least if people are interested. And we can discuss how ethical, and there's a lot of other difficulties with that, but we could definitely much quicker try out stuff than or that looked more real than before. Question is, do we really need it? Because of course sometimes with some of the examples that Eric talked about, it's actually even easier than just with writing code. But I think it could be a little bit going both directions. I think there might be interesting things to
Oh,
to
I think vibe coding is pure gold when it comes to prototyping, and this is actually a new capability that I wholeheartedly welcome, because we have, just in the spirit of book recommendations, we have another option we could explore when we are at this earliest stage of product validation. Well, actually, this is not even a product market fit; it's problem solution fit. So like the earliest stages, just another option. And as we learned from Chris Matz and Olaf Massen, options have value.
exactly. Yeah, that's you said much better what I tried to say. So that's really thing. And indeed, I forgot to use the word vibe coding, which we of course should mention these days. Uh, I want to move already to that last question, because we're almost running out of time. Who do you think I should ask next? And I think you had three names. Well, let's
I
let's
would
bring it on.
I would go Chris Matz, but you mentioned that it's like too late for recommending him.
Yeah,
I would
I already had a conversation with him at 187, but indeed, and I'll link it already, because that it was a wonderful conversation. So who were the other two people that you had in
I
mind?
would I would definitely recommend you talk to Jose Casal
And
and
I think this is Jose,
yeah
if I'm correct.
and JP, either together or JP Bailey, either together or separate. These are absolutely fabulous human beings. Lots and lots and lots of smart stuff around lean and agile. And probably not obvious considerations for many of us. because they are not those kind of most prominent figures. I would say exactly the same thing about Matt Barcom.
And
Uh,
I wanted to bring him on, and then I clicked wrong. So this is Matt. Indeed, might not be as known as he should be, if you ask me. I was lucky to be in I think PSL with him. Been wonderful human being, I would say. But that's my opinion. So why would do you think I should bring him on?
Matt has has the right balance between the contrarian point of a view and pragmatism by my standards, and it's like our exchanges tend to be both challenging and inspiring, which is a very good combination.
Combination, indeed. Yeah, I like that combination. I when you say that, I can immediately imagine the kind of conversations you have with him. I mean, that's yeah, but that's the kind of thing. We talked earlier about challenging and getting feedback. Well, he has a way to, at least for me, it feels like, to challenge me that I don't feel offended to it. It really feels like, oh, this is, yeah, it's a human being where I have lots of respect for, that I really feel like, oh, this is the kind of thing indeed that, yeah, wonderful.
And I would ask, I would add one more, which I might have not added in the notes before the recording. So sorry for making mess. Katherine Kirk. So Katherine, she her her influence on me in some aspects was kind of similar to some of the kind of most pivotal books that I read. So she's operating. She was always kind of on the fringes of agile lean. She was more into Eastern psychology. She has like super interesting history of her life and how she ended up in doing basically helping organizations with getting better at either agile or management stuff. But she does what I mentioned in the context for example, Stephen Bungay. She brings those kind of experiences for a very different domain to our context, and suddenly it's fresh and it's inspiring, and it changes how people perceive things. And she's totally not attached to any kind of specific methods or stuff. So it's a plus
Really
for me. I don't
you're
know
right.
whether for everyone, but it's a plus for me.
But definitely also looks for me like a right person to invite. That means that right now we're already running out of time, or mostly you running out of time. Pawel, it's been a wonderful conversation right from the very first moment that we reconnected here. If people want to connect with you and want to contact you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Sadly, LinkedIn. Sadly, because I tend to dislike the tool, but since I'm using it very actively, I caught myself that it's kind of easier to go through the mess in the LinkedIn conversations, because email, which is also a good way to contact me, way more noise. So every now and then something falls under the table, but equally
Yeah,
equally good.
I recognize both what you said about the tool LinkedIn and the need. It's at this point it seems for most people the kind of best way, and at the same time the worst way. It's kind of hard to say it differently, but I think many people will recognize that. Now, again, Pawel, it's been a wonderful time. So I really want to thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
You've been a wonderful host, and I really appreciate how you guide this conversation. And thank you for having me.
Well, the pleasure was all mine. Hope to see you again very soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.